could you please think about the question why the bronze soldier monument is such a controversial site of memory? Yeah, thank you very much. Here it is. And just we have 3 minutes to give our first ideas about that. And as Karsten already widened the topic, and you can think about the similar events or monuments in your own country, and just to generalize the question and why monuments can be sometimes so controversial in society. What is the reason of that? Could you please put here, write here your first ideas, or what do you think? Because of the human remains. Thank you. More options, please. But you can see question of identity, yes, what the soldier means to some people and to others. What more reasons can be behind of that? Yeah, okay. Thank you for thinking about that. And as our time is limited, probably we can just move on and to leave the questions and discussions after the workshop. Yes, but we have more glorifying and occupying force, yes. And monuments are always political. It's also true. There are different views of the period and of the Soviet period and so on. Thank you so much. I tried to share the screen now. And the main question, why some topics are sensitive or controversial, you already answered. And the controversies are coming from our past, from our history, from our memory, both collective and individual, and also from our identity, what we are sharing with our group or just individual understanding what I'm thinking about the past. And topics and controversies are often very complex, and it's not simple answer why they are raising. But they evoke strong feelings and cause or increase quarrels, causing mistrust. And it's the reason why we have to deal with such kind of topics in history teaching, to develop multiple understanding and understanding of historical concepts. And if we are thinking, why do sensitive or controversial topics need to be addressed, then international organizations are also asking us to do that. Because of migration, our societies are socially and culturally diverse, more and more. And in our classroom, there are students from several nationalities and with different cultural background, which means that our teaching should be culturally sensitive. And students have a lot of questions about the problems and conflicts in the world and in society. And they just would like to know what is happening in Afghanistan, in Syria, and what is happening in their own countries. And all those questions need to be discussed and answered on somehow. And of course, there may be different opinions and views in the classroom as well. But the classroom is not the place to find out historical truth and to make it clear that you are right and you are wrong. We have to develop understanding how to contribute together and how to talk to each other and to think what is behind of that kind of different views and opinions in the classroom. And the report of Erasmus program comparative research shows us that intolerance and radicalization are on the rise among young people as well. And we can't take democracy as granted. We have to develop ability to engage in dialogue and to strengthen democracy through our history teaching. And if you look at pedagogical aspects, then awareness and empathy are already mentioned during discussion of the topic generally. But analytical and critical thinking skills are also something we can develop through history teaching, and also to shape democratic values and develop universal values as well. Be able to listen each other, to have debate, develop expression and deliberation skills, and to introduce a principle of multi-perspective and historical thinking. And the reference here is to his historical thinking project, which introducing 6 main points introduced by Peter Seixas. And they are just to think about significance of history, to work with primary sources as an evidence, to notice change and continuity, and to understand the historical context. And of course, it's very important to think about ethical dimension as well, because all crimes in the past are just made by human beings. And these aspects gives us just possibility to bring the discussion on the human level. And Robert Stradling introducing us different strategies, and which are also as guidelines in Council of Europe materials. And if the topic is too hot and you can't deal with that in the classroom, it's always possibility to find the other examples and parallels, similar events or topics from the other countries or from different time. And also, it's very important to widening the understanding about the topic, to introduce new information, bring new perspectives in. And identification is just point of development of empathy, and it's always useful to think about the topic from the other's point of view, or try to feel what the other people or the other side of people might think or feel. And history teaching also stress importance of research, to make my position or my opinion on the basis of working with sources, not vice versa, to having a very certain position and trying to find out sources to support that. And impersonation is very important, especially in Estonian case, and we often using the word of Russian state, such and such, and they are behind the occupation. But we have to think about vocabulary we are using. We should point that it was political regime, not a certain nation or certain people even. And for the last point, winning is very important to make it clear for students that they are part of history. They are included in the history, and they are linked with all the events happened in history. And this is speaking about them as well, and it's professionality of teacher, how to bring students the past time to make the link strongly and make it personally meaningful. And of course, teachers always have to take account students' age and intellectual ability and cultural, emotional, and social background. And teachers have several options how to introduce the topic, and very often they are taking balanced way, trying to represent those positions. But in some cases, it's probably very important that teacher is speaking about his or her position, or making intrigue if students are not interested in dealing with the topic, or the topic is very much stereotypical or biased. And I think in this place it's very good to give the word or screen to Linda.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mare, and greetings from the Estonian Academy of Arts. I think Mare outlined the question then that how to teach these contested topics either in classroom or also via guided tools. And at the end of our this workshop presentation, we would like to come back to this question together with all of you via Jamboard, so you can already start to think of strategies and means to address contested monuments. But as we discussed with Mare, that what kind of examples, what kind of resources could teachers use, then we rather quickly came to the awareness that perhaps we should employ more experiences and strategies from contemporary arts as a medium for working with memory conflicts. Like before, already during the seminar, during Karsten's Q&A, we discussed museums as one possible medium, but then also from Ene Kõresa's reply, we learned that perhaps some potential is still unrealized, that the museums definitely have a good platform, good potential for addressing monumental conflicts, but not necessarily do that 100%. So perhaps one of the ways or one of the media to learn from might be contemporary arts. And I think in relation to the bronze soldier crisis, there is an Estonian artwork from 2009 by Kristina Norman titled After War that also represented Estonia at the Venice Art Biennale that, in our opinion, very well demonstrates this potential of contemporary arts and the ways in which perhaps we can also in history classes and history teaching learn from the contemporary arts. So, and I think in 2009, the artist Kristina Norman really made this powerful argument saying that with her artwork, with her making a replica, a golden replica of the bronze soldier and placing it at the same location where the original monument was standing on the 9th of May 2009. She also made a claim that the memory conflicts or the monumental conflict, it cannot be neatly just tucked away, that these kind of conflicts of remembrance are something that one needs to work with, to deal with. You cannot get over it unless you really work with the different opinions, with the different memory collectives. I think from here we can move to the next slide. We can also think that, yes, the next slide, where we could see also the conflict that evolved around the performance that was carried out by the artist. So you had on the one hand, the bystanders gathering, and on the other hand, the police also intervening and asking the artist to relocate the golden replica of the monument. That while in 2009, this was a reminder for the Estonian society that the bronze soldier crisis shouldn't be forgotten, it shouldn't be placed under the carpet, but dealt with continuously, actively. Then I think if we watch these kind of images with students nowadays, then they also show this dynamics of the remembering, because I think after the Black Lives Matter crisis, these kind of images and this kind of conflicts over monuments definitely obtain also new meanings, new context, right? But what was multi-layered and multi-perspective about this art project is really that how it is interested in the complexity of the meaning of monuments. And in this art project, the artist also represented the monuments in different contexts via different keys. So the art project included this video work, but then also some other smaller replicas of the bronze soldier. So she was exploring different ways of remediating the monument, different contexts where it is placed. And via that, I think also very finely shows that monuments are never hot topics in themselves, but in order a monument to create monumental conflict, it has to be remediated, it has to have different communities attached to it, different media of remembering different rituals and different visual textual representations attached to it, and thereby it gains resonance in the society and becomes a hot topic. But on the other hand, I think the art project really also deconstructed the monument and the understandings around it, as she says also in this text, that they cast doubts on the rhetoric of historical winners and losers, and also deconstructs this idea of this binary opposition of two conflicting communities that Karsten also referred to, that although in the mainstream media or in the ideological representations, it was often represented as this opposition of Estonian versus Russian memory community, then it was in fact much more complex. I think we can now move to the next slide, Mare. Here is some more explanation from the artist Kristina Norman herself, as also explaining her position as artist coming from a region where the past still strongly affects the present, and also herself coming from a mixed family of Estonian Russian descent, her positioning herself between the two communities due to her mixed background. So again, you see this contemporary art addressing the complexity of remembrance. And I think this is exactly what needs to be done in teaching, both at school level and at university level, and possibly also during this guided tours, that not to oversimplify the conflicts, but rather to explain and to work really namely with this complexity of remembrance. And again, this positioning of the artist looking for more tolerant approaches between official history writings, not choosing a historical truth from either of the memory collectives. She's asking uncomfortable questions regarding democracy, tolerance, xenophobia, and pair. And I think also here, among these ideas, these questions, these approaches she proposes is something that we can also learn during our history classes. As a final slide here, I just wanted to point out that it's not only in connection to the Bronze Age crisis, but also in a wider sense, there's different versions, different memory collectives that contemporary art has been productive in the recent years in Estonia. And there's another example from an Estonian Russian artist, Mare Oja. Her work Dream is Wonderful Yet Unclear, and works with this memory collective of Russian women from the Eastern Estonia, from Narva, and then does this research-based art that works with the personal memories, personal archives of those people. If you now, Mare, can move to the really last slide. And you also see these women in front of another monument below there. They're below of a monument to strike in Narva, in front of a closed textile mill. So working with a small forgotten memory community in post-industrial Estonia. But again, you have this functionality and potential of contemporary art to highlight, to work with these forgotten and conflicting memories.
It will be nice to share your thoughts. What do you think? What kind of methods can help us to overcome controversies in teaching history? And just to start with debate in the classroom and not deal with topics probably which are too hot, or how to deal with such kind of topics, not to make trouble in the classroom between students with different understandings and positions. And there are already 3 sharing their understanding. And the case study contemporary art in museums, memory sites, cultural and education institutions is rather good. And just to bring probably the past on the level of heritage, and to use three pillars as history, memory, and identity, or to think about what we have common as human beings, what kind of feelings we are sharing, and also to look from that perspective, probably different parts who are waiting on the conflict or war even. And when we develop the teacher's guide, how to teach multiperspectivity in Estonia, we try to deal the Second World War topic with collecting songs during the war from different sides to show what people fought and what soldiers fought in the war, and to show learners how the history or politics is just playing with ordinary people. And it's very often not a very concrete choice if we are doing one or the other decision in our private lives. As eyewitnesses, to use testimonies, and it is really very good also to see perspective of ordinary people, and teaching and developing empathy, the past or the others. Yes, it's very good point. And to put students in the shoes of makers, it's also developing empathy and to make them understand what the dilemma is, what is meaning of dilemmas, and compare and contrast official commemorations with private memories. It's also a very good example how to do that. And thank you very much for sharing your thoughts and thinking about the topic we are dealing today. Yeah, to share family stories and challenge students to design inclusive monuments. Yes. And what kind of perspective they are taking to share the common values or to find the common ground for that. I think that the EuroClio can keep all your good ideas and thoughts, and to use probably in teacher's guide in the future, or just to present on the other way through the blue page or Triana. Mixed classes. And
absolutely.
Yeah, it's very good.
So
thank you all. Yes.
Thank you also, Mara and Linda, for including like the activity here. I think there is so much also from the participants to share. And yeah, as you mentioned, we are working now on this guide on like how to make like a good tour. Thank all the speakers, so Karsten Bruggeman, Linda Kaljundi, and Mare Oja. Thank you so much for sharing all your knowledge. And we'll just have like a short poll, if you can bear with us for like 2 or 3 minutes, because I do think it's good to end on the time that we promised. So we've got a lot of like insights in the bronze soldiers. It's still, I think, it's not something only on the past. It still remains symbolic of like how inclusion and exclusion works. There are like these competing narratives, especially, for example, on the conditions under which the Red Army came to Tallinn, but also the conditions under which Estonia joined the Soviet Union, and that is somehow symbolized by the conflict on this. At the same time, you can see that like how it's experienced, it's not only depending on like with the group that you identify with, there's also a big age difference. So younger people don't have like the living memory. And So you also need different approaches. And I think in preparation of this, we also said, okay, well, there would be a different approach for teaching this in people from Western Europe, for example, than people from Eastern Europe. So I think that's always a real challenge. How do you adapt this to the learners? Like, how much context do you give? And I was also very pleased to hear the suggestion from Karsten to really put this as one element in a bigger memory landscape and really combine all the different memory sites, if you like. And then in the end, it was very good to get some practical ideas, also using the art, for example, so that you don't have, and people who have mixed backgrounds, so that you really go away from this sort of black and white approach where you only have like the Estonian narrative, the Russian narrative. It's actually much more complex. That is usually what I'm saying. Okay, we're in the business of making history more complex, but that makes it also much more interesting. I would leave it at that. So we went like 1 minute over time, which, judging from the poll responses so far, seems to be about the right time. So Aline, Marie-Louise, is there anything you would like to say to wrap up when we are still collecting the answers from the poll?
I just want to say thank you to everybody who have shared their ideas with us and thoughts. I think it's really valuable, especially as we move forward with our toolkit. I'm sorry, I don't have my video on. And to say that please do join us again on January 26th when we have our next event, and we'll be looking at the Bolzano bas-relief in Italy, which is quite interesting because it's one of the only places where you still see the image of Mussolini in a public space. And the question is, what did they do about that? It's quite also an interesting example of where art is used to in a commemorative way. So please join us if you can.
Yeah, thank you very much. And perhaps indeed also a little pitch. We also have related to this a series of podcasts. And looking backwards, there's also the chance to look at the previous event that we had on the Warsaw Uprising Museum, and there is already a podcast episode about that. So thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you soon again online. Thank you very much.